ranking all 9 films by Quentin Tarantino. Let's go. What's up, guys? CD here, back with another ranking for you today. As you can tell by this video, we are doing a Quentin Tarantino special today. We're ranking all 9 of Tarantino's films in his directorial catalog. So he has 9 films, depending on how you slice Kill Bill. I'm including Kill Bill as one ranking in this video. I know it was technically released in 2 parts. You had Volume 1, which was released in 2003, and then Volume 2, which was released in 2004. However, Tarantino himself has said that he made this film to be one film. He wrote it as one film. He includes it as his fourth, I think it is, his fourth film in his resume, not his 4th and 5th film. So the director himself views this as one work, so that's how I'm going to be ranking it today, as one full complete story. So 9 films we have to rank today. I'm excited for this one. Tarantino is one of the best filmmakers in Hollywood, in my opinion. He's one of the best to ever do it. So he has a very unique style of directing and filmmaking. Anyone who's familiar with his work could probably tell within a 2-minute scene if it's a Tarantino film or not. So let's get into it. Just to let you guys know up front, I have seen all 9 of these films multiple times. Okay, so some of them I had not seen until fairly recently, so I went back to watch them, and then I watched them on a second viewing, and some of them I've even watched more than that. So I have seen all 9 of these films multiple times. And the reason I say that is because none of these are a one-time viewing for me. So, because unfortunately, sometimes when you do ranking videos or whatever, you have that one person that's like, well, you need to see it more than once, man, to like it, or you need to see it more than once to know what it's about, which I think is a load of crap. To be honest, I don't think you need to see every film multiple times to know whether or not you like it. I don't think you need to see every film multiple times to understand it, to know what it's about. I think it's good to see films on multiple views. You get more familiar with the story. There may be things that you didn't catch the first time around that you do the second time. So it's certainly good to see a film multiple times, especially when we're talking about like a filmmaker like a Tarantino or a Christopher Nolan or a David Fincher. It's good to see their films multiple times because they're known for having layers to their films that you just don't always catch with one viewing. So that's why I'm putting that out there. I have seen all of these multiple times, so none of these are one-time viewings for me. I feel pretty confident about my ranking here with these films. Some of them have gone up since first viewing. Some of them have gone down since the first viewing. So we'll get into it. This is gonna be a little bit of a longer video, just because there's 9 films to rank, and we're gonna go a little bit in depth on these films and why they land where they land for me personally. And again, this is my personal list. This is my personal opinion. My ranking doesn't have to be your ranking. You may have them completely different, in a completely different order in your Tarantino ranking, and that's totally fine. That's the subjectivity of film. So we can discuss it in the comment section. Let me know your ranking. Let Let me know your thoughts. But let's get into all 9 of Quentin Tarantino's films, ranking from worst to the best. Let's get it. So, coming up first at our number 9 spot, we have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. This is Tarantino's most recent film. It was released in 2019. I did see this film in theaters when it came out. I've seen it multiple times since. I liked it the first time I saw it, but upon each rewatch, it's gone down for me. I'm not as big of a fan of this film as a lot of other people are. So I think, in my opinion, this is my least favorite Tarantino film. I'm not going to say it's the weakest film overall, but I think it's my least favorite because I'm not ranking these based on what is objectively the best films. This is my ranking of my enjoyment and my favorite of his films and based on my viewing experience. So my viewing experience of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think it's a decent film. There's definitely humor elements to it. It has that Tarantino humor side to it. Some of the lines are pretty good. It looks really good. It's really well shot. I do like some of the cast in here as well. It's got some good stuff going for it. The things that hold this film back for me, though, one is in the writing. I do think this is the weakest Tarantino script when it comes to story. There's really no story here, like at all. There's no story for a guy like Tarantino who's known for writing really good story, having really good story in his films. There's essentially no story in this movie. It just follows 3 kind of individuals, real life individuals who were from the 1960s, and just kind of shows the tail end of their career in Hollywood, and that's it. But there's no actual story. It's more based on the last few events of a Hollywood actor and his stuntman, and then they throw Sharon Tate in there, which to me that whole story doesn't mesh well with the rest of the film. Like, Sharon Tate is her own person, she has her own unique story, tragedy, but I don't think it really had nothing to do with Leonardo's character or Brad Pitt's character in the film, and to me it felt out of place, felt like it wasn't needed. So you had Leonardo's character who plays this Hollywood actor from the 60s. I forget what his name in the film was, and then you have his stuntman played by Brad Pitt, and the film kind of follows the last few years of their career in Hollywood, and then on the side you have Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate, and it doesn't harmonize well with what's going on in the rest of the film. So the writing here, I think, is weak, in my opinion, by Tarantino, and there's no real story here. It's just Leonardo playing this whiny boohoo actor guy who is just waking up to the fact that his career's dwindling away and coming to an end, and Brad Pitt's character and his friendship with Leonardo. There's just no story. There's just no story to get behind. I don't care about the actor that Leonardo is playing. I don't care about the stuntman that Brad Pitt is playing. Brad Pitt's kind of funny. He provides some humor in the film, but I don't care about literally any of these people or characters in the film. You have the Manson family in there. No one cares about the Manson family. They're unique, but as far as people like caring about, I don't think anyone would say, "Oh, I care about Charles Manson. I care about, that morbid, sadistic family." Like I don't care about any of these people in the film. So it's 2.5 hours of just Leonardo's character he's playing at the tail end of his career, and he's not a good. The guy he's playing is not a good actor, and it's his relationship with his stuntman, played by Brad Pitt, and that's it. I just every time I've seen this film, other since the first time I saw it, all the other times I've seen this film, I've just thought like, why am I wasting all this time with this character? Like what is it saying? There's nothing that this film is telling me from a storytelling perspective. There's no story being told. There's no storytelling. It's just, hey, here's this actor that was in Hollywood in the 60s, and he had a stuntman, and they were friends, and he realized that he wasn't a good actor, and that's the end of his career. That's all this film was about. It was kind of glorifying Hollywood, love letter to Hollywood, which quite frankly I don't necessarily know is a good thing. Like, quite frankly, Hollywood can be blamed for a lot of the demise of our country, to be perfectly honest with you. So I don't know if I personally care about seeing a 2.5 hour love letter to Hollywood. So it's just my opinion. I think this is a decent film. I give it 2.5 stars. There's some entertainment value to be had in it. Again, some of the humor works for me. It's shot really well, really well. I think the pacing is pretty good, but it doesn't have much rewatch value to it for me. So to me, it's the weakest of Tarantino's films. I don't want to say worst of his films, because he doesn't have any bad films. Again, this is a 2.5 star film for me, which is still decent. That's not bad. It's just decent. So if your worst film in your directorial catalog is still decent, then you're doing pretty good as a filmmaker. So, and again, if you're one of the people that loves this film, that's totally fine. This is just my opinion. I'm just not a big fan of this film. So I did like seeing Al Pacino in it. He's always entertaining, but and like I said, it has its moments for sure, but there's just no storytelling for me. And from a guy, like I said, in Tarantino, who's known for his storytelling and his scripts and his dialogue, it just fell flat for me. There's just no story to be told in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it comes in at the bottom for me at number 9, 2.5 star film. Moving on to my number 8. Number 8, we have Death Proof. Death Proof is the film that I typically see at the bottom of most people's list for Tarantino's films. I actually like this film. It's a fun ride. It's a fun hour and 40-minute film. It's not long. It's under 2 hours. It's like an hour and 40 minutes till the credits. And it's a fun thriller chase, cat and mouse chase. You have Kurt Russell here, who plays a really good stalker, creepy, sadistic guy. And the film, there's actually really good storytelling in Death Proof that I think gets overlooked a lot by people. I think a lot of people critique this film for the quality aspect of it, And a lot of them will say they didn't really care about the story. There wasn't really much story here. I don't think that's true. I think they're missing what Tarantino was going for in Death Proof. If you don't get anything out of this film, I think it's because you missed what it was that Tarantino was going for. But if you understand his vision, and if you understand the story that's actually being told here, it's actually a pretty good film. And I enjoy it. I give this one 3 stars. I do think this is a good film. It's solid. Kurt Russell's character is very entertaining. Um, and it's, I don't want to say I like the character, because I don't think you can like that that character, but he's incredibly entertaining. And it essentially follows Kurt Russell's character, who's the antagonist, and the first half of the film is kind of follows this group of women who encounter Kurt Russell's character. Things happen, and it shows how they deal with it. And then the second half of the film is another group of women that have an encounter with Kurt Russell's character, and they handle it differently. So you have two groups of women that have an encounter with the same guy in the film, but the two groups of women handle that confrontation differently. And I think there's actually a lot of deep meaning and a lot of deep story being told in how that takes place, in the story that's being told within how those group of women choose to handle this plot and this tension with Kurt Russell's character. So it is a grindhouse film, so it's not necessarily the most beautiful film as far as visually in the aesthetics of this film. It's not that aesthetically pleasing. That's not what Tarantino was going for. This is a grindhouse film. He wanted you to feel unease, uncomfortable, kind of give it that gritty feel to the film. So I think this is exactly what Tarantino was going for, and it works for me. Some people it works for, some people it doesn't work for them, but it works for me. So I enjoy this film. It's a good cat and mouse game. I do like the second group of women better than the first group. I think they're more entertaining. I think there's more humor in the second half with that second group of women. And I think the first group of women, kind of annoying, to be honest, for me. But it's still overall an entertaining film. It has its problems. Again, I know it was a conscious decision by Tarantino to shoot this film the way he shot it, so I don't critique him for that. It was a conscious decision, but it still negatively affects my viewing experience. That grindhouse film, the old camera, darker lens, it doesn't. It's not aesthetically pleasing. And again, I know that's what Tarantino was going for, but that does negatively affect my viewing experience with this film. And then some of the characters in the first half with that first group of women are incredibly annoying to me. So yeah, but overall, I this is a good film. It's solid. It's definitely rewatchable. Me personally, I would much rather watch Death Proof than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I definitely have a more entertaining and positive viewing experience with Death Proof than I do with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So it's a good film. 3 stars for me, and it comes in at number 8. Moving on to my number 7, we have Jackie Brown. This is, I think, an underrated Tarantino film. I don't see this film often talked about or heard it talked about very often in Tarantino conversations. I think this one gets oftentimes gets overlooked, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think maybe it's because Tarantino didn't write the script here. This I think is the only Tarantino film that he didn't write. So that might be the reason for it, but it's still a Tarantino film. I mean, if you watch this film, you can tell this is definitely Tarantino's vision of this film. So it's still very much Tarantino in the style, in the look, in the casting decisions, in the sound. It's definitely still Tarantino. So, and he did direct it, so it's still one of his films. He just didn't write the script for this one. But I really enjoy Jackie Brown, especially upon multiple viewings. I personally think this is one film that you gain more enjoyment out of it with multiple viewings. Because the first time I saw this one, I liked it, but I didn't think it was that entertaining. And it was honestly, it would have probably been 8 or maybe even 9 after the first time I saw it. But upon multiple viewings of this one, it's actually gone up for me, and I actually do have a good time with Jackie Brown. It's entertaining. Once you know what happens, then you can kind of sit back and just enjoy the story unfolding the way it does. The performances are all good. Samuel L. Jackson is fine in it. Robert De Niro. It's Robert De Niro. I mean, the guy can't miss. He's money in everything that he touches. So he does a good job. Michael Keaton, I think, gives an underrated performance here. He's really good in this film. There's a scene towards the end of the film, this interrogation scene with Michael Keaton and Jackie Brown. If you've seen the movie, then you know what I'm talking about. That Keaton just really brings it in that scene, and it's a really good scene and a good performance by Keaton, and I really liked him in the film. So yeah, it's a really good film. I give it 3.5 stars. Again, I think this is one you can enjoy more upon multiple viewings than just one watch. It's essentially a crime drama that kind of has a thriller element to it. You're wanting to see how this is going to work. How's this plan going to unfold, and how's it all going to take form and take shape. And it's a fun ride. It's a crime drama thriller with a Tarantino touch and feel to it. So yeah, a good film. My issues with Jackie Brown, I personally didn't feel, and I still don't feel that the actress that played Jackie Brown and her bail bondsman, what was the guy's name in the film? I'm so bad with names, guys. I'm horrible with names. You know who I'm talking about. If you've seen the film, you know who I'm talking about. Her bail bondsman. There's kind of a love story that plays out with them. I just don't think they had good chemistry. Every time I've seen this film, I don't buy it. I don't buy their chemistry together. And at the end, when you're supposed to have this emotional moment with the two characters, it just doesn't land for me, because I'm not invested in their relationship. I don't buy it. So that kind of falls flat for me. And then I think it's a little bit slower of a pace. There's not a lot of action to it. There's not a lot of humor. It kind of misses that Tarantino humor for me as well. So that also kind of brings it down. But it's still dialogue heavy, and it the plot and the story and the script is really, I think, well flushed out and entertaining. You are invested in the story and how it's gonna work out for everybody. It's just, as far as entertainment and rewatchability goes, the lack of that Tarantino humor and the little bit slow pace, especially in the first act, kind of draws me out a little bit with this film. But overall, I really do enjoy this film. It's a 3.5 star movie for me. It's I do suggest multiple viewings with Jackie Brown, because I can understand if you just see this movie one time and you don't like it. I can understand that, but I do think, once you've seen it and you know what happens, when you go back and have multiple viewings of it, there can be more enjoyment to be had from it, because you can kind of sit back in the pocket and just enjoy how it unfolds. So, yeah, Jackie Brown, really good film, good performances. Tarantino's directing is fantastic. And yeah, it's 3.5 stars. It comes in at number 7 for me. Moving on to my number 6, we have The Hateful Eight. The Hateful Eight is a Western, it's almost like a Western play that's in a film format. So it's got your typical Tarantino cast: Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, Tim Roth, Michael Madsen, your typical guys that are in a Tarantino film, are in this film. So, yeah, it's well acted though. I do enjoy the performances. Some of them are over the top. I think that's intentional. It's definitely more of a play, and more of a drama act, that's just done in a film format. But almost the entire film is shot in a cabin. In a cabin out in the snow in Wyoming. It's wintertime. There's a blizzard that's coming in, and this group of guys have to bunker down in this cabin together and have to try to get along. And there's kind of a murder mystery going on as well to it that's fun and thrilling. And it's got a Western feel to it. So I really like The Hateful Eight. This is another Tarantino film that I see takes a lot of heat from people. It's all subjective, but for me, I don't know. I really enjoy this film. There's 2 cuts of it. I've seen both cuts, the theatrical cut and the extended cut. I personally prefer the theatrical cut over the extended cut, just because I feel like the extra material that's in the extended cut isn't really needed. I don't think it serves much of a purpose for the story. So I think you can cut that 17 extra minutes out and go with the theatrical cut and have a much more solid story there. So I prefer the theatrical cut, but either way, it's still, it would still land here at number 6 for me. I really enjoyed this film. I'm a Western guy. I love the outdoors. I love the snow. I love the cold. And I love that 1800s Western vibe and feel. So you give me that in a Tarantino film, with Kurt Russell and Tim Roth and some of those guys, I'm sold. I'm in. So the fact that Tarantino can make almost a 3-hour Western film take place essentially in one location in a cabin and make it entertaining the whole time is pretty impressive. The only other spot that is filmed here is in a stagecoach. There's the first chapter takes place in a stagecoach, and then the rest of the film is essentially in a cabin. So to pull off an entertaining film, as entertaining as this film is to me, in a near 3 hour runtime, shot entirely in one location, it's pretty impressive. And yeah, I just really enjoy this movie. I also give The Hateful Eight 3.5 stars. It's not quite to the 4-star tier level. 4-star is a film that I consider a classic and a film that I would say I love. I don't know if I go quite there with The Hateful Eight. I really like it. It's a really good film. But to me, there's some stuff in there that I just don't think was needed. Bruce Dern, I think is his name, Bruce Dern, the old guy. I cannot stand that guy. I don't know what it is, but I think it's his voice and his face. It's just always bothers me. He has the most annoying voice. Every time he talks really like this, and it's just really annoying. I just like, he's in multiple Tarantino films, but I think he definitely has the most screen time in this film. Of the 3 Tarantino films that I've seen him in, I think he's only been in 3. But of those 3, he definitely has the most screen time in this one, and that takes his film back a notch for me, because I just can't stand his voice or his face. So yeah, all the scenes with him and all the speaking scenes with him, I'm just like, no, I can't get in. I can't get behind him. And then the scene with him and Samuel L. Jackson's character, I don't think that was really needed. Like, it was a little, it's Tarantino-esque. Like, that's what you would is what you would expect from a Tarantino film. But I don't think it's needed here. I don't think it fits. Like, you could do without that. I don't think it served anything for either character, or did anything for the story. And I think you could have easily removed that stuff, that I don't think anyone really enjoys watching or listening to anyways. You could do without that and still have the same story and same central plot take place here. So that scene always kind of rubs me the wrong way as well. And then there's just a few other things that just, they affect my viewing experience. When I watch the film, I'll watch it and I'm like, why was that there, you know, or why did he do that here? But overall, I really enjoyed this film. Tim Roth is really entertaining in this film. He's one of my favorite characters. Of course, Kurt Russell is always entertaining. But I love the look. I think this is arguably the most beautifully shot Tarantino film. The way that he shoots this is just so beautiful. The way he shoots in the winter, the way he films Wyoming in the snow, it's just beautiful cinematography. And the cabin, the set design there is beautiful. I love the look of this film. It's very aesthetically pleasing, and I think is one of Tarantino's best looking films in his directing history. So yeah, really like The Hateful Eight. I definitely recommend it. I would recommend the theatrical version over the extended version, just because the extended version, it's still the same story, but it's just added stuff that's not really needed. Like, you can have the full story in the theatrical cut. So condense it down, save that 17 extra minutes. You're not missing anything crucial from the story. And that would be my recommendation if you haven't seen the Hateful Eight. But 3.5 star film. It comes in at number 6. Moving on to my number 5. And guys, from here on up, all 5 of these are 4-star films and higher. So that just shows you what I think of Tarantino as a filmmaker. He's got 5 films that are 4-star and higher for me. So number 5, I would say would be, I'm still undecided on this one. I'm still going back and forth, but number 5, I'm going to go with Django Unchained. Django is, again, aesthetically really pleasing, beautifully shot. I love Christoph Waltz's character in this film. He does an incredible job in this film. Jamie Foxx is really good. But to me, my favorite characters is definitely Christoph Waltz's character, Dr. Schultz. He is very entertaining on screen, and I don't know what it is about Christoph's performances, but I haven't seen him in too many films, but every time I do see him, I'm always like glued into what he's doing, and he just knows how to hook me into his performance, and I buy into it. So he does a great job. Jamie Foxx, I think, does fine. I don't think I mean, we're not talking like Oscar level performance here, but he does a good job in the film playing Django. There's a really good story here being told, a lot of emotion to it. I think there's definitely things to be said with this story. There's good plot, there's good tension, good characters here. So yeah, I really enjoyed Django Unchained. I wasn't sure if I was going to enjoy it going into it the first time I saw it, because I'm not a huge Jamie Foxx guy, and I'm not a Leonardo DiCaprio guy at all. Anyone who knows me knows that Leonardo is one of my least favorite actors. So yeah, I know I'll probably catch a lot of hate for that, but I can't stand the guy. So I think he's incredibly overrated. A lot of people think he's such a great actor. He's so amazing. In my opinion, every time I see Leonardo DiCaprio, I always think he's sharp on all of his performances. When I see him act, I always perceive it as him overdoing it. He never hits the key. He's never on tune. He's always sharp. It's like he's trying so hard to be method and trying so hard to be a method actor. It just doesn't work. He always overdoes it, and it comes off as annoying to me, and I'm not a fan of his. And it's not intentionally trying to overdo it. The thing is, he thinks he's not overdoing it. He thinks he's playing it on key when he's not, and that's what's annoying. It's like, no, dude, you're not on key. It's not, you're not there. So, yeah, I'm not a Leonardo guy at all, and that is one of the things that holds this film back for me. No exception here. I think his performance here as Candy is overdone. I don't think it's a great performance. There's the scene on the wagon when they pull up to his plantation home, and he's my sister. It's like, dude, he way oversells it, and like, I'm sorry, I'm not a Leonardo guy. So yeah, that's also probably what weighs down Once Upon a Time in Hollywood for me as well, to be honest. But yeah, his performance is annoying to me, and then it always bothers me too when I watch this film. Why didn't Dr. Schultz and Django just straight up offer to buy Django's wife from the beginning? That whole third act could have been avoided if they would have just offered to buy her from the beginning. And I know they were talking about it. Well, what if he says no? He wasn't going to say no to $12,000. Like, if you're going to offer him $12,000 to buy one of his fighters, if he's willing to give up one of his best fighters for $12,000, obviously he would be willing to give up one of his slaves for $12,000. Like, that made no sense. Every time I watch this, it always bothers me. Like, dude, this whole thing could have been avoided. Just offer the $12,000 for her, and the whole thing could have been solved. Like, and he would have done it. He does end up doing it. Like, it just, it always frustrates me that Christoph Waltz had to die for a stupid idea and just a completely stupid decision by the characters. So, yeah, that also weighs this film back for me a bit. Is that always negatively affects my experience with this film is Leonardo's performance, and the whole third act could have been avoided if they would just offer the $12,000 to buy Django's wife. Problem solved. Christoph Waltz makes it out alive. Django doesn't have to get tortured after that. His wife walks free. Problem solved, you know. So, yeah. But this is still a great film. I love this film. It's thoroughly entertaining from start to finish. It's well paced. And it's also a Western. And I'm a Western guy. I like a good Western. And this is no exception. So Django Unchained comes in at number 5 for me. Moving on to my number 4, we have Kill Bill. Kill Bill. This is the one that's like, it's kind of hard to analyze because I do really enjoy this film. It's got a lot going for it. Both volume 1 and 2 have a lot of good stuff in it. I think volume 1 has more of the action, you know, with the fight with Copperhead. I think it's Copperhead right in the beginning, and then the fight, the sword fight at the end is really good. And then volume 2 gives you more of that character development, more emotion to it, more of the heartbeat to the story in volume 2. So they're different, but it's all one complete story. So I do really like the characters in this film, and I love the whole Japanese culture, samurai culture in this film. The action is incredible action, choreographed by Quentin Tarantino. The acting is good by everybody. Just a lot of really good stuff here. And I love Kill Bill, so it's also a 4-star film for me. There's a few things that hold it back. In volume 1, there's a scene in the hospital that is, I don't think really needed there. Again, it's Tarantino for you, but it doesn't do anything for the character or for the story, really. I could have done without. And yeah, I mean, I could have maybe had a little bit more emotion in volume 1 and a little bit more action in volume 2. But it's a great film. So yeah, definitely worth checking out. And yeah, it comes in at my number 4. Moving on to my number 3, we have Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs, I love Reservoir Dogs. This is an amazing film. The dialogue is, I think this is Tarantino at his best when it comes to dialogue and script. Incredible. This is essentially an hour-and-a-half film of just amazing script writing, amazing dialogue writing, amazing character studying, character search. It's incredible. It's an amazing film, and this was his first film. This is his first theatrically released film, and man, is it good. I love the concept of this crime that takes place, this robbery that takes place that we never see. You never actually see the crime take place. You just you get the picture of what went down from the perspectives of the different people involved in it, and it's not linear, so it doesn't take place in order either, which I think is just genius filmmaking by Tarantino. But the performances here by the actors is what really brings it home. And Tim Roth is great. Michael Madsen as Mr. Blonde is maybe my favorite character. He's fantastic. The dance there and with the ear, yeah, that's great stuff. But yeah, even Mr. White, I love Mr. White in this film. He's fantastic. So yeah, everyone is good in this film. I love Reservoir Dogs. It's an easy watch because it's only an hour and a half, but it's very rewatchable at the same time. So there's not a lot of action. It's very dialogue heavy and dialogue driven, but it works. And like The Hateful Eight, this film essentially takes place in one location, in a warehouse. Although there are a little more locations shot than in Hateful Eight, it's still the bulk of this film takes place in a warehouse. So, and I think there's actually a lot of symbolism and a lot of meaning to that warehouse and how it's shot. It's very empty. And I think that actually says a lot about the characters in the film as well. I don't really hear people picking up on that very often or mentioning that, but I think the emptiness of the warehouse is actually a reflection of the characters as well. So I think everything here was intentional by Tarantino, and even where that film is being shot in that warehouse is intentional by Tarantino. I think there's a lot more going on than what people even realize. So, yeah, I love Reservoir Dogs. It's a 4.5-star film for me. The only thing that keeps this out of 5-star tier is during some of the individual stories of the characters. I think Mr. Orange, there's that scene where he's having to create the story for the other guys in the mob that he's working with. And it's a made up story, but yet Tarantino still shows us what he's saying. And to me, when I watch this film, it just doesn't make sense. I'm always drawn out a little bit from it because I'm like, if this is a made up story, why are we seeing what happened if this is a fictional story, so that pulls me out a little bit. And I feel like it maybe could have done with a little more action. This is so dialogue heavy and dialogue driven. I feel like if it had a little bit more action, that might have done a little more for me personally. But man, is this a great film. I love Reservoir Dogs. It's 4.5-star film, and it comes in at number 3 for me. Moving on to my number 2, we have Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece. I'll go ahead and say right now, this is a 5-star masterpiece. I love Pulp Fiction. The storytelling, the story is incredibly written by Tarantino. And this is the first time, because this was his second film after Reservoir Dogs. But this is where Tarantino kind of leaves his stamp on films when it comes to lead characters, because the lead character in this film is supposed to be John Travolta. And if you haven't seen this film, spoiler alert, but I think I've already given some spoilers in some of the other films prior to this, but I assume if you're watching this, you probably have seen all of Tarantino's films, or most of them. But yeah, I think Pulp Fiction, the fact that John Travolta is built to be and is billed to be the lead performance, the lead role of this film, and then gets capped like halfway through this film. That would be a key thing that Tarantino would put in films later on, is like, that's one of Tarantino's rules, is that no one is ever safe in his film. Anyone could get it. Anyone could, not make it out. So, and this is the first time that he really shows us that with John Travolta's character in this film. But performances by everyone is great. I think this is maybe one of Bruce Willis's best performances as Butch. He does a great job. Samuel L., the speech in the apartment is iconic. And even the speech with Tim Roth at the end in the restaurant is really good. And I think there's a lot of deep meaning with Pulp Fiction as well that people miss with this film. There's a lot of individual, moral, philosophical stuff being presented in this film that often gets overlooked by the plot or the action, what's actually going on. But if you listen to the dialogue in this film and you understand the perspectives of the characters, there's actually a lot of stuff going on, philosophically speaking, morally speaking, with the characters here. So I love Pulp Fiction. It's incredibly entertaining, thoroughly entertaining from start to finish. And yeah, it's a 5-star masterpiece. What can I say? This is, subjectively speaking, a perfect film. There is a particular scene in there that I've heard some people criticize for being there, and it's a similar scene to the scene that I was thinking about in one of the other films that I brought up, that I said it wasn't needed. I think it was The Hateful Eight. But the difference is the scene in Pulp Fiction that I'm thinking about was actually needed for the characters in the film. It actually did something. It served a purpose for the story. It wasn't just filler nonsense that didn't need to be there. Where in The Hateful Eight, the scene that I was talking about wasn't really needed. It was something that could have been taken out, and it would not have affected the story or the film. But in Pulp Fiction, that scene is actually needed. Like it though it's hard to watch and it is grotesque, it's still serving a purpose. It's still there for a reason. It's not just filler nonsense that Tarantino wanted to be there. It's actually doing something for the characters. So, yeah, again, to me, in my opinion, Pulp Fiction is a masterpiece. It's five stars, and it is my second favorite Tarantino film, coming in at number 2. But of course, number 1, as you can already figure out, my favorite Tarantino film is Inglourious Basterds. To me, this is Tarantino at his best, at his absolute peak. This has everything that I want a Tarantino film to have. It's got good action, it's got good story, it's got good script, it's got good humor, it's got good characters. Everything comes together in this film for me. Everything that you like about Tarantino films, whether it's the gore and the action and violence, that's in this film. Whether it's the humor moments and some of the funny, crazy dialogue, that's in this film. Or whether it's the cool, likable characters, entertaining characters, that's in this film. whether it's the great performances by the actors, that's in this film, whether it's the storytelling and the emotion and the script itself, that's in this film. Like everything that makes a Tarantino film great is in Inglourious Bastards. So to me, it is the best of Tarantino because that's where he is firing on all cylinders, and everything kind of comes together at a peak for me in this film. So I love Inglourious. It's an incredible film. It's a 5-star masterpiece, and it is my favorite Quentin Tarantino film. So, yeah, that's it. I know this was a longer video, guys, but I really wanted to get in depth here with the Tarantino review of his films and my ranking of his films, give you my thoughts about them. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, guys. If there are other movies you want me to review or other ranking videos you want me to do, let me know in the comment section, and I will get around to doing them. But yeah, what other directors do you want me to do ranking videos of? I wanted to do Tarantino. He's one of my favorite directors and filmmakers, one of the best filmmakers out there. So yeah, that's my ranking of all 9 Quentin Tarantino films. Thank you again for watching, and as always, until next time, rock on.